The ambassador's spine shattered with a wet crack that echoed through the crystalline throne room. Captain Elena Reeves didn't flinch. Her hand remained steady at her side, fingers loose but ready as the Crethean queen rose from her obsidian throne. The alien monarch stood 3 meters tall, her chitinous frame gleaming like polished volcanic glass under the bioluminescent ceiling. 6 arms unfolded with mechanical precision, each tipped with claws that could slice through starship hull plating. "Your diplomat spoke of treaties," the queen said, her voice like wind through broken glass. "Promised cooperation?" He lied. The ambassador's body twitched once, then stilled. Blood pooled beneath his formal robes, spreading across floor tiles that shifted colors to absorb it. Elena's jaw tightened, but her expression remained neutral. Royal Guard protocol was clear. Observe, protect the principal, never show weakness. Ambassador Chen wasn't her principal. The 12-year-old girl standing 2 meters behind her was. Princess Arya Chen Okafor, humanity's youngest diplomatic envoy, daughter of the Unified Earth Council's co-chairs, hadn't made a sound. Elena could hear the child's breathing. Elevated but controlled. Good. The girl had training even if she shouldn't be here. Ambassador Chen believed in peace, Elena said, her voice cutting through the throne room's unnatural silence. As do we all. The queen's compound eyes fixed on her, thousands of facets catching light.
You believe in survival?
You believe in propagation. You believe your soft biology gives you moral authority. She stepped over the ambassador's corpse, descending the 7 steps from her throne. I have studied your species for 3 cycles. You are weak. Fragile. You require constant sustenance, constant temperature regulation, constant atmosphere. You die from simple chemical exposure. You break from minor kinetic impact. Elena's peripheral vision tracked the throne room's exits. 12 Crithian warriors lined the walls, each carrying plasma lances that hummed with barely contained energy. The room's architecture funneled toward the entrance behind her, a killing corridor if they needed to retreat. But retreat meant abandoning the ambassador's body, meant admitting defeat, meant confirming everything the queen believed about humanity. Your Majesty, Arya's voice was small but clear. My father sent me because... Silence, larvae. The queen's mandibles clicked together. Your presence insults me. Humans send a child to negotiate with queens who have conquered 17 star systems. This is your arrogance. Your biological imperative to protect offspring makes you believe youth conveys innocence, trustworthiness. You use your own weakness as manipulation? Elena felt Arya step forward. Protocol screamed in her mind, keep the principal back, maintain the defensive position, but the girl moved with purpose, not panic. I'm not here to manipulate, Arya said. I'm here because Ambassador Chen was my uncle, because I asked to come, because I wanted to see you myself. The queen tilted her head, an oddly bird-like gesture from a creature of armor and edges. See me? To report my savagery to your council? To justify military response? To understand why you killed him? Silence crashed through the throne room like a physical force. Elena's hand drifted closer to her sidearm, a plasma pistol that would be useless against the queen's guards but might buy Arya 3 seconds to run. 3 seconds was protocol. 3 seconds was duty. The queen's chitinous plating shifted colors rippling across her exoskeleton. Your uncle promised your species would share genetic modification technology, technology that allows your weak biology to survive in environments that should kill you. He promised this in exchange for mining rights in the Helion cluster. She moved closer, each step deliberate. When I agreed, he revealed the truth. Humans will not share this technology. Cannot share it. Your council has banned genetic distribution to prevent weaponization. That's not... Arya began. He lied through biological necessity. Humans evolved to deceive, to use complex vocal communication and facial manipulation to hide intent. Your species weaponized social interaction because you lack natural defenses. You are prey animals who learn to pretend you are predators. Elena's mind raced through exit strategies. The windows were reinforced crystalline composite, impenetrable without heavy explosives. The door behind them was guarded. The ventilation shafts were too narrow for human passage. They were trapped in a room with a creature who had just demonstrated she felt no moral weight in ending human life. You're right, Arya said quietly.
Elena's breath caught.
The girl was supposed to stay silent, stay safe, stay alive. Instead, she was engaging with her uncle's killer. We are fragile, Arya continued, taking another step forward despite Elena's subtle hand signal to stop. We do need specific conditions to survive. We die easily. We deceive to protect ourselves. She paused, standing now directly between Elena and the Queen. But you're wrong about why my father sent me. The Queen's arms spread slightly, a gesture Elena recognized from intelligence briefings, preparation for attack or display of dominance. Enlighten me, human child. Why does your species send larvae into danger? Because I volunteered. Because no one else would come after you killed Uncle Marcus. Because every adult on the council was afraid. Arya's hands were shaking now, but her voice remained steady. You wanted to see human weakness? Here I am. 12 years old. Scared. Sad. Angry. Completely helpless against you. The throne room's air seemed to crystallize. Elena's hand wrapped around her pistol grip, drawing it slowly, silently. If the Queen moved toward Arya, protocol ended. Duty became something simpler, something older. And yet you stand before me, the Queen whispered, leaning down until her mandibles were centimeters from Arya's face. You possess courage your biology should not allow. You face predators your evolution screams to flee. You defy your own weakness. The Queen's voice dropped to something almost like wonder. This is why we fear you. Arya didn't move, didn't blink. You don't fear humans. You fear what we become despite being weak. The Queen straightened, her compound eyes reflecting Arya's small form 1,000 times. Your uncle offered technology. I counter-offer. Tell me, human child who volunteers for death, what do you want? Elena watched the Queen's warriors shift their grip on plasma lances. Watched the bioluminescent ceiling pulse with changing colors. Watched a 12-year-old girl negotiate with a creature who bathed in the blood of diplomats. I want, Arya said slowly, to understand why our weaknesses scare you more than our strengths. The Queen turned away, moving back toward her throne. Her voice carried across the crystalline space with perfect clarity, because strength can be measured, destroyed. But weakness that refuses to yield? She settled onto her obsidian seat, 6 arms folding into formal position. That is something no amount of armor can defend against. Elena saw it then. The slight tremor in the Queen's exoskeleton, the way her mandibles clicked in a pattern intelligence databases listed as anxiety or stress. The throne room wasn't a display of power, it was a fortress. The warriors weren't guards. They were shields, and Ambassador Chen hadn't been killed for lying. He'd been killed for revealing a truth the Crythians couldn't accept. Your Majesty, Elena heard herself say, breaking protocol, breaking silence. What frightened you about the genetic modification technology? The Queen's eyes fixed on her. Your guard speaks out of turn. Captain Elena Reeves speaks with my permission, Arya said immediately, learning the game, understanding the dance. Answer her question. The chamber fell silent except for the subtle hum of plasma weapons and the distant pulse of the ship's biological systems. Your technology, the Queen finally said, does not make you stronger. It makes you adaptable. It allows your weakness to survive anywhere, become anything, transform limitation into advantage. You are a species that should have died in your planetary cradle. Instead, you spread across stars by embracing what should destroy you. She leaned forward. I killed your ambassador because he offered to share this gift. And I realized, if humans can teach others to weaponize weakness, to turn fragility into strength, then armor becomes meaningless. Power becomes irrelevant. The strong become obsolete. Arya looked up at Elena, then back to the Queen. You're afraid we'll make you like us. No, child. The Queen's whisper carried like thunder. I fear you will make the universe like you, and there will be no place left for creatures who need armor to feel safe. The moments stretched, fragile as spider silk. Elena felt the weight of decision pressing down on the throne room, on the 3 of them, on the space between species. Ambassador Chen's blood had stopped spreading across the floor. The body lay still, in formal robes that were supposed to protect him, supposed to convey authority, supposed to matter. Arya took a breath. Then I guess, she said softly, we should talk about what happens next. The Queen's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile or might have been a threat. Yes, human child. Let us talk about what monsters like me do when faced with weapons we cannot comprehend. Elena's hand stayed on her pistol. The girl she was supposed to protect stood defenseless before an alien who killed without hesitation. Protocol said retreat. Duty said protect, but something deeper, something human, said stay. Watch. See what weakness can accomplish when it refuses to break. The throne room's walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, painting everything in shades of amber and violet. Somewhere beyond this chamber, fleets waited for outcomes. Councils anticipated reports. Billions of lives balanced on whatever happened next. And in the center of it all, a child faced a queen. Fragile biology confronted chitinous armor. Humanity's weakness stood naked before the galaxy's strength. Arya's next words would determine if that was suicide or revolution. The queen waited, compound eyes reflecting 1,000 versions of the same small human girl. The warrior's plasma lances hummed lower, tension easing by fractional degrees. Elena recognized the shift predators reconsidering prey that behaved unexpectedly. "Your Majesty," Arya said, her voice carrying weight beyond her years. "Before my uncle died, did he tell you why humans banned genetic distribution?" The queen's posture shifted, curiosity replacing aggression. "He claimed fear of weaponization, of creating biological nightmares that could devastate ecosystems." "That's true," Arya agreed. "But there's more. The technology works by teaching cells to adapt. To change based on environment, need, threat. Early experiments succeeded too well. Test subjects adapted to everything. Vacuum, radiation, extreme temperatures. They survived conditions that should have killed them." She paused, glancing at Elena, then back to the queen. They also couldn't stop adapting. Their bodies kept changing, kept responding to stimuli that weren't threats. Within months, they weren't human anymore. They were collections of survival mechanisms with no baseline biology to return to. Elena watched the Queen's warriors exchange glances, or what passed for glances, among creatures with compound eyes. The throne room's atmosphere shifted from hostile to attentive. "Your species discovered a horror," the Queen said slowly, "and rather than exploit it, you locked it away?" "We discovered that survival without identity is just slow extinction," Arya replied. "The test subjects begged to die, not because they suffered, but because they couldn't remember what they were supposed to be. Adaptation without limit is worse than death." The Queen rose from her throne again, but this time her movement carried different intent. She descended the steps not as a predator approaching prey, but as something else, something Elena couldn't quite categorize. "Your uncle offered this technology knowing its danger?" "He offered to help you understand it," Arya corrected. "To share the research so you could learn from our mistakes. So if you ever develop similar capabilities, you'd know the risks." Her voice strengthened. "He died trying to give you knowledge that cost us thousands of lives to acquire." The Queen stopped 3 meters from Arya, her chitinous frame towering over the child. "Then why did he not explain this when I questioned his offer? Why allow me to believe he lied about sharing?" "Because," Arya said softly, "you killed him before he could finish explaining." The words hung in the crystalline air like shards of ice. Elena saw the Queen's exoskeleton ripple with colors she'd never witnessed in intelligence footage, deep purples and blues that cascaded across armored plating in waves. The Queen began, then stopped. Her mandibles clicked in rapid succession, a sound the cultural database listed as distress or confusion. "I assumed deception. I have encountered 17 species, all attempted to manipulate, to gain advantage through lies. Your biology suggested weakness. Your diplomat's words suggested trickery." I responded as I always have. "By eliminating the threat before understanding it," Elena said quietly, earning a sharp look from the Queen but also something like acknowledgement. "Yes." The Queen's 6 arms spread wide, a gesture of vulnerability that made her warriors shift nervously. "I am a creature of armor and conquest. I evolved to strike first, to dominate before being dominated. Your species evolved to communicate, to cooperate, to survive through connection rather than isolation." She looked down at Arya, compound eyes reflecting the child's face in kaleidoscopic repetition. "I killed your uncle because I understand strength. I do not understand the power of voluntary weakness." Arya reached up slowly, giving the Queen time to react, to pull away, to defend. Instead, she placed her small hand against the Queen's chitinous leg. The contact looked absurd. Soft skin against biological armor, warmth against cold efficiency. "Then learn," Arya whispered. "That's why I came, not to punish you, not to declare war, to teach you that human weakness isn't a trick. It's a choice." The throne room fell into absolute silence. Even the plasma lances stopped humming. Elena felt her tactical training screaming warnings. The girl was exposed, vulnerable, one strike away from joining her uncle. But she also felt something else. A recognition that this moment transcended protocol, transcended duty, transcended the simple mathematics of survival. The Queen's armor shifted beneath Arya's touch, plates sliding against each other with crystalline whispers. "A choice," she repeated. "You choose fragility when you could choose strength. We choose connection when we could choose isolation," Arya corrected. "We choose to need each other when we could try to need nothing. We choose to be weak together instead of strong alone." She pulled her hand back slowly. "And somehow that choice let us reach the stars. That choice built a civilization that can stand in your throne room and offer friendship to someone who just killed one of us." The Queen's mandibles spread fully, exposing the vulnerable mouthparts beneath. In Crythian culture, Elena knew this was the ultimate gesture of trust or surrender. The warriors along the walls lowered their plasma lances completely, magnetic locks engaging with quiet clicks. "I have conquered 17 systems," the Queen said, her voice lacking its previous edge. "I have destroyed fleets, shattered orbital fortresses, reduced planets to compliance. I did this because I believed strength was survival. That armor was safety. That power was the only truth that mattered." She turned, moving back toward her throne, but instead of sitting, she stood beside it, one hand resting on the obsidian surface. "In 3 cycles of observing humanity, I learned your language, your customs, your military capabilities. I prepared for conquest or defense depending on your species' intent, but I never prepared for this." "For what?" Arya asked. "For a child who volunteers to face her uncle's killer? For a guard who breaks protocol to ask questions instead of seeking revenge? For a species that bans its own most powerful technology because it values identity over survival?" The Queen's color shifted again, settling into patterns Elena's database labeled as contemplation or processing complex concepts. "I never prepared to encounter a species that weaponizes its own weakness and calls it diplomacy." Elena stepped forward, positioning herself beside Arya in a gesture of unity rather than protection. "Your Majesty, humans don't weaponize weakness. We just refuse to let it define us. Ambassador Chen came here knowing the risk. He came because he believed understanding between our species was worth dying for. His niece came for the same reason. And you, Captain Reeves?" The Queen's eyes fixed on Elena. "Why did you allow this child into danger?" "Because she ordered me to," Elena replied simply. "Because human weakness includes giving 12-year-olds the authority to make decisions that terrify adults. Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let others be brave." The Queen moved closer again, her massive form radiating a presence that should have triggered every evolutionary flight response humans possessed. Arya didn't flee. Elena didn't draw her weapon. They stood their ground, not through strength, but through choice. "I killed Marcus Chen," the Queen stated, voice formal now, ritualistic. "I ended his life before understanding his intent. I acted from fear disguised as strength. In my culture, this crime demands blood debt. I owe the Chen family a life." She extended one clawed hand toward Arya. "By Crythian law, you may claim my life in exchange for your uncle's." "I will not resist. My warriors will not intervene." Arya looked at the offered hand, then up at the Queen's towering form, then back to Elena. The captain saw the calculation in the girl's eyes, not whether to accept the offer, but how to transform it into something else entirely. "I don't want your life," Arya said quietly. "I want your understanding." The Queen's hand trembled, an almost imperceptible vibration that her rigid biology shouldn't allow. "Understanding is not sufficient blood debt. Crythian law is absolute."
Then change your law?
Arya replied. "You said humans turn weakness into strength, that we choose fragility when we could choose armor. Prove you understand by doing the hardest thing your species has ever done. Choose to be wrong. Choose to evolve beyond what your biology tells you is necessary." The throne room seemed to hold its breath. Elena watched the warriors along the walls, saw their compound eyes fixed on their queen, saw the weight of cultural precedent pressing down on this single moment. 17 conquered systems. Countless battles. Millennia of evolution towards strength and domination. All of it challenged by a child asking for understanding instead of blood. The Queen lowered her hand slowly. "You ask me to betray everything I am." "No," Arya said. "I ask you to become something more than what you are. That's what humans do. That's our real strength. We keep choosing to be better than our biology, better than our history, better than our fear." She paused, then added, "My uncle believed you could do the same. That's why he came here. That's why he offered you knowledge instead of weapons. Silence stretched between species, between evolution paths, between creatures who should have been enemies but were instead standing in possibility's shadow. The queen turned to her warriors. "Leave us," she commanded. "All of you. This conversation requires privacy that armor cannot provide." The warriors hesitated, a break in discipline that spoke volumes about the unprecedented nature of the order. But training overcame confusion. They filed out through side passages, plasma lances held in formal rest positions, until the throne room held only 3 beings: a queen who conquered systems, a captain who protected principles, and a child who refused to accept that weakness meant defeat. When the last warrior departed and the chamber doors sealed with crystalline whispers, the queen's exoskeleton began to shift. Plates separated, revealing softer tissue beneath. She was making herself vulnerable, removing the armor that defined her species' approach to existence. "I have never done this before in other species," the queen said, her voice different now, less resonant without the armor's amplification. "What you see is weakness. What you see is everything Crithians spend our lives protecting and hiding and denying." Elena felt her breath catch. The queen's true form was surprisingly delicate, pale membranes and articulated segments that looked fragile without the chitinous plating. She was still enormous, still clearly powerful, but no longer the invincible conqueror. She was simply alive, simply vulnerable, simply real. Arya approached slowly, each step deliberate. She stopped within arm's reach of the partially unarmored queen and did something Elena would remember for the rest of her life. She hugged her. The child's arms couldn't even span a fraction of the queen's width, but she pressed her face against the exposed membrane and held on like she was embracing her own mother. The queen's 6 arms hovered uncertainly, then slowly, carefully, wrapped around Arya in return. "I'm sorry about your uncle," the queen whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't listen. I'm sorry I let fear make me cruel." Arya nodded against the queen's chest, tears streaming down her face. "He would have forgiven you." He believed in second chances, in learning from mistakes, in building bridges instead of walls. They stood like that for long moments, 2 beings from different evolutionary paths finding common ground in shared grief and tentative hope. Elena felt her own eyes burning, felt the weight of what she was witnessing settle into her bones like new gravity. Finally, Arya stepped back, wiping her face. "Your Majesty, can I ask you something?" "Anything, child. Will you teach me your language? The real one, not the trade dialect. I want to understand how Crithians think, how you see the universe." "What your poetry sounds like." She smiled through tears. "My uncle collected poetry from every species he met. He'd want me to continue his collection." The queen's colors rippled: joy, surprise, something like hope. "Crithians do not write poetry. We write battle songs and conquest chronicles." "Then teach me those," Arya insisted. "Teach me what matters to your people. Help me understand why strength feels safer than connection." The queen looked at Elena. "And you, Captain? What do you ask of me?" Elena considered carefully. "I ask that you remember this moment. Remember that a 12-year-old human girl taught a conquering queen that armor can be removed. That vulnerability can be chosen. That weakness, when shared, becomes something else entirely." "I will remember," the queen promised. "I will share this story with my clutchmates, my warriors, my counselors. I will tell them that humans are not weak prey pretending to be predators. You are something we never imagined possible, prey that evolved beyond the need for predation, creatures who turned survival instinct into civilization building, weakness that became wisdom." Arya smiled, genuine and bright. "Does that mean you'll negotiate with the council, talk about mining rights and technology sharing and building something together?" "Yes," the queen said simply. "But first, we must honor your uncle properly. In Crithian culture, those who die teaching truth are given to the stars. We return their elements to the cosmos they sought to understand." She moved toward Ambassador Chen's body, her unarmored form moving with surprising grace. "With your permission, I would like to perform this ceremony. I would like to send Marcus Chen home among the stars he crossed to reach me." Arya looked at Elena, who nodded. "The council would approve. His family would appreciate it." Together, the 3 of them prepared the ambassador's body according to Crithian custom, wrapping him in crystalline shrouds that would dissolve in the vacuum of space, positioning him in the throne room's orbital launch chamber, speaking words of passage that transcended language barriers. When they activated the launch sequence, Elena watched the shrouded form drift into the black beyond the viewport. Stars wheeled overhead, indifferent and eternal. Ambassador Marcus Chen had crossed those stars believing in connection, had died for that belief. And somehow his death had created exactly the understanding he'd hoped to achieve. "Captain Reeves," the Queen said as they watched the body become distance became starlight, "I have a question." "Yes, Your Majesty." "This weakness your species embraces, this voluntary vulnerability, this choice to need others instead of becoming self-sufficient, does it frighten you? Do you humans ever wish they had evolved toward armor instead of connection?" Elena thought about her training, her years in the Royal Guard, the countless scenarios where armor would have made her job simpler, safer, easier. "Every day," she admitted. "Every single day I wish I was stronger, tougher, less fragile, but then I remember that our fragility is what makes us careful with each other. Our weakness is what makes us build communities instead of fortresses. We need each other because we can't survive alone. And that need became culture, became civilization, became the reason we're standing here talking instead of fighting." The Queen's colors shifted to deep blues, contemplation mixing with acceptance. "I envy you," she whispered. "I envy the freedom to be weak, to choose vulnerability, to remove armor and trust that others will not exploit the exposed places." She looked at her own partially unarmored form. "I have worn these plates my entire life, slept in them, fought in them, hidden in them. I cannot imagine existing without them." "Maybe you don't have to," Arya suggested. "Maybe you can choose when to wear armor and when to remove it." "That's what humans do with emotional armor. We put it on when we need protection, take it off when we need connection." "Emotional armor," the Queen repeated. "Your species even turns abstract concepts into defensive metaphors. You are fascinating creatures. Maddening and confusing and completely fascinating." They stood together at the viewport, watching stars wheel by as the ship orbited an unnamed moon in neutral space. Three beings who should have been enemies, who should have been separated by biology and evolution and fundamental approaches to survival. Instead, they were simply present with each other, simply alive together in the vast indifference of space. "Your Majesty," Elena said after a comfortable silence, "the Council will want a full report. They'll want to know if humanity is at war with the Crithian Empire. What should I tell them?" The Queen's mandibles clicked in the pattern the database listed as amusement. "Tell them that war would require me to understand how to fight an enemy that defeats me, with children and tears and requests for poetry lessons. Tell them I am ill-equipped for such conflict." She paused, then added, "Tell them that the Crithian Empire wishes to negotiate. Not from strength or weakness, but from this strange middle ground your species has shown me. This place where armor can be removed and replaced, where vulnerability can be chosen and survived." Arya yawned, exhaustion finally catching up with adrenaline. Elena immediately moved to support her, but the Queen's arm got there first, lifting the child with surprising gentleness. "She should rest," the Queen said. "I have chambers prepared for diplomatic guests. They were designed for intimidation, but I suspect they will serve better for sleeping." "I can walk," Arya protested sleepily, but she didn't fight the Queen's hold. "Of course you can," the Queen agreed. "But you have spent the day teaching a stubborn queen to think differently. That is exhausting work. Let me carry you. Let me practice this voluntary weakness you describe." Elena followed as the Queen carried Arya through crystalline corridors that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Warriors they'd passed stood at attention, compound eyes tracking their Queen carrying the human child with unprecedented care. Word would spread quickly. The unconquerable Queen showing gentleness, showing vulnerability, showing change. The diplomatic chambers were indeed designed for intimidation. Oh, all sharp angles and cold surfaces, but the Queen used her own body as a cushion, setting Arya down on the sleeping platform and arranging her discarded armor plates as a protective shell around the child. Dream of your uncle among the stars. Dream of bridges instead of walls. Dream of the universe your species believes is possible. Arya was already asleep, her breathing steady and deep. The Queen watched her for a long moment, then looked at Elena. "Stay with her. I must speak with my counselors, begin the impossible task of explaining what occurred here. They will think me weak. They will question my fitness to rule. They may challenge my authority."
What will you tell them?
Elena asked. "The truth," the Queen replied simply. "That I learned more from a human child than from conquering 17 systems. That armor can be prison as much as protection. That the universe is larger and stranger than I imagined." She moved toward the chamber door, then paused. "Captain Reeves, your species has a saying about enemies becoming friends, yes? Many sayings, Your Majesty? Then add one more to your collection. Tell your people that the Crithian queen met humanity's weakness and discovered it was actually their greatest strength. Tell them that armor is heavy, and I am tired of carrying it alone. Tell them—" She paused, colors rippling across her exoskeleton like aurora across night sky. "Tell them that I would like to learn how to be weak together, if they will teach me." Elena stood at attention, offering the formal salute of the royal guard, not to an enemy, not to a threat, but to someone who had chosen to evolve. "I will deliver your message, Your Majesty, and I believe my people will answer it with hope." The queen departed, her footsteps echoing through crystalline corridors, leaving Elena alone with the sleeping child who had accomplished the impossible, who had walked into danger armed with nothing but honesty and tears and the stubborn human refusal to accept that weakness meant defeat. Elena settled into a guard position by the door, her hand no longer on her weapon. The chamber's bioluminescent ceiling pulsed in slow rhythms that matched her breathing. Somewhere beyond these walls, fleets waited for reports of war or peace. Councils anticipated news of triumph or tragedy. The galaxy spun on, indifferent to the small dramas of biological beings trying to understand each other. But in this chamber, in this moment, humanity had done something extraordinary. Not through weapons or threats or demonstrations of power, but through a child brave enough to face her uncle's killer and ask for understanding instead of vengeance. Through a guard willing to trust that weakness could protect better than armor. Through a species that refused to let biology determine destiny. Ambassador Marcus Chen had crossed the stars believing in connection. He'd died teaching that truth. And his death had planted a seed that might grow into something unprecedented. A friendship between prey that evolved past fear and predators learning to live without armor. Elena watched Arya sleep, surrounded by a Crithian queen's protective plates, guarded by a captain who understood that duty sometimes meant witnessing miracles instead of preventing disasters. The girl's face was peaceful, tear tracks dried on her cheeks, dreams hopefully gentle after the day's trauma and triumph. Outside the chamber, Elena heard voices rising. Crithian counselors arguing in cliques and hisses, undoubtedly debating their queen's unprecedented vulnerability. The debate would continue for hours, maybe days. Change this fundamental couldn't happen quickly, but it would happen. Elena felt certain of that, because Arya had shown the queen something impossible to unsee, that armor could be removed and survival could continue. That weakness shared became strength multiplied, that the universe held more possibilities than biology suggested. The bioluminescent ceiling shifted to softer colors, signaling the ship's artificial night cycle. Elena remained at her post, watching over the child who had changed everything by simply being human. By being weak and brave and stubborn and kind, by carrying her uncle's legacy across stars and into the throne room of creatures who conquered systems. Tomorrow would bring negotiations and treaties and the complex work of building peace between species who approached existence from opposite directions. Tomorrow would require diplomacy and careful language in the delicate dance of mutual understanding. But tonight, a human child slept safe in an alien queen's armor. Tonight, vulnerability had been chosen and survived. Tonight, humanity had smiled back at the universe's danger, and defiance had worn a 12-year-old's face. And somewhere among the wheeling stars, Ambassador Marcus Chen's elements drifted home, carried on solar winds that didn't distinguish between human and Crithian, just atoms returning to atoms, just truth settling into the bones of the cosmos. Just another small step toward the impossible future the humans kept insisting was achievable. Elena's watch beeped softly. 4 hours until morning cycle. 4 hours of quiet guard duty protecting a principal who had already protected herself through means no tactical training could have prepared for. 4 hours to remember that humanity's greatest victories often looked like children crying in throne rooms, like guards asking questions instead of drawing weapons, like weakness that refused to break. She settled deeper into her stance, comfortable now, alert but not tense. The chamber's walls pulsed with gentle light. Arya's breathing remained steady and peaceful. And in corridors beyond, a Crithian queen argued with her counselors about whether vulnerability could be strategic, whether armor could be optional, whether a species built for conquest could learn to build something else instead. The debate would last long into the night, would probably continue for years, might never fully resolve, but it was happening. That was enough. That was everything. That was humanity's impossible gift to the galaxy. The stubborn insistence that even the most fundamental truths could be questioned, could be changed, could be evolved beyond. Weakness had met strength in a crystalline throne room. And weakness had won by refusing to accept that winning required becoming something else. Elena smiled in the gentle dark, guarding dreams and futures in the fragile hope that sometimes, against all biological logic, prey and predators could choose to build bridges instead of walls. Outside, the stars wheeled on, indifferent, eternal, bearing witness to small beings making large choices in the cosmic dark. Inside, a child slept. A guard watched. And somewhere in crystalline corridors, a queen removed her armor one plate at a time, learning the terrifying freedom of chosen vulnerability. Humanity had crossed the stars carrying weakness like a banner. And the galaxy was beginning to understand that maybe, just maybe, that had been strength all along.